Let me know if this sounds like you. You hit 40 and it feels like your metabolism has slowed down. You don't have as much energy, you're gaining weight despite your best efforts to lose weight, and you don't feel like you've really done anything differently. Part of the solution might be easier than you think. A lot of these things are caused by not eating enough protein, which we actually need more of as we age. And this goes for men and women, but for women, it's even more important. So many women, no matter what age, are undereating protein and don't even realize it. And especially after you hit 40, your metabolism actually starts to slow down, you lose more muscle, and fat becomes harder to burn, especially around your midsection. So in today's episode of the Healthy Not Complicated podcast, I'm going to be talking about why protein is so important, especially after 40, signs that you're not eating enough, how to get more into your diet, all of the good stuff. We're going to be talking about it today. And let me tell you, just making this one simple change can make such a difference. I have seen this with myself in my results in the gym. Obviously, I'm not over 40 yet, but protein is important at any stage of life. And I've noticed the differences when I've incorporated more into my diet, and I've seen it with so many of my clients, especially who are over 40, because that's when it really makes a big difference. Your body doesn't metabolize it as efficiently, so you do actually need more as you age. But we'll get into that all today, and we'll talk about the risks of not eating enough and what it means for your long-term health. But let's start off by talking about why you need more over 40. One of the main reasons why we need more as we age is because after 30, we start to lose muscle mass. And this is really important to hold on to. This isn't just about bodybuilding or strength in the gym or even about aesthetics. Muscle is a metabolic hormone, so it's really, really important for our metabolism. After 30, we start losing more and more muscle mass, and this accelerates when we hit 40, when we hit 50. And one of the reasons why we lose it at an accelerated rate is that our body isn't metabolizing protein as efficiently, and we're not compensating and eating more of it. So it's a pretty easy fix if you're looking big picture. Another reason that you need more protein is because of hormonal changes as you age. Declining estrogen in women and declining testosterone in men mean you hold on to less muscle as well. You have to fight a little bit harder to maintain it. And yeah, just because we aren't able to digest it as efficiently, we need to eat more quality protein and make sure we're getting it from the right sources in order to meet our needs and be able to hold on to this muscle and support our hormones efficiently. Now, the recommendations for protein are far too low. They are really set at the bare minimum amount you need in order to just be able to function day to day, I guess, but it is far too low if you want optimal health, if you want to maintain your muscle. And like I've said a few times so far through this video, maintaining your muscle mass is super, super important. As you age, it's going to mean you're going to be at a lower risk of injury, so you'll be less likely to fall, you're going to be more stable, you're going to be less likely to fracture or break bones, and it's going to support your metabolism more. You're going to be able to use the energy in your system more efficiently. It improves insulin sensitivity as well because your muscles actually store glucose. So if you have more muscle mass, then you have more room to store glucose throughout your body, and this improves your insulin sensitivity. So having more muscle isn't just about looks. It's not just about being strong. It's about supporting our metabolism and everything that comes along with that. So the general recommendations for protein intake, if we're talking your weight in pounds, if you look at your ideal body weight, it's about 0.36 grams per pound of your ideal body weight. And I think it's about 0.8 grams per kilo of your ideal body weight. Far too low. You should be aiming for 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So if the ideal body weight for your height, for your gender is 150 pounds, you should be aiming to get 150 grams of protein in every single day. And so for kilos, that's going to be 2.2 grams per kilo of your ideal body weight. So if 70 kilos is your ideal body weight, then you want to be aiming for, 145 grams of protein. And this is what's been shown in the research to be the optimal amount. And you can get away with a little bit less when you're younger if you're sedentary, if you're not active and working out that frequently. But as you age, it becomes even more important to hit this threshold because, like I said, your body isn't digesting and metabolizing it as efficiently. So what you're eating, your body isn't able to use all of that. But also the quality of protein makes a big difference as well because, and what I'm talking about here is basically plant protein versus animal protein. The protein that we get from meat and animal products, it's more bioavailable. Our body is able to utilize more of it than the protein we get from things like beans and legumes. The protein in beans and legumes, some of it is bound to anti-nutrients, and that's why our body isn't able to use it. And anti-nutrients, if you're not familiar, they're basically exactly what they sound like. They hold on to nutrients so our body can't use them. And there are ways to, I guess, like deactivate them. If you think of something like spinach, which on paper has a decent amount of iron in it, but I'm sure you've probably heard that you have to cook spinach in order to be able to use the iron that's in it. And that's because the iron is initially bound to anti-nutrients. So by cooking it, you're actually able to use more of it when you eat the spinach. So it's kind of a similar concept when it comes to protein that we get from plants. Things like soaking and sprouting beans and legumes can deactivate these anti-nutrients and make the protein a little bit more bioavailable, but it's a lot easier and more straightforward to just focus on animal foods as a protein source because your body can actually use them and absorb them a lot more efficiently. Let's sidestep a little bit and talk about signs that you're not getting enough protein. One of the biggest ones is that you are constantly hungry and have cravings throughout the day. Protein is extremely satiating, and it's because protein is so important for our bodies, it has so many functions that we will remain hungry until our protein needs are met, if that makes sense. And that's why it's so easy to overeat things that are low in protein, things like potato chips or French fries that are mainly carbs and or fat. You can be completely stuffed from a meal and still picking at those French fries. And the reason that you're still able to pick at them is because they don't have a lot of protein. Meanwhile, something like chicken or steak, it is very hard to overeat because once you meet your protein needs, hunger kind of switches off. So if you are still hungry throughout the day, if you're hungry in between meals, if you're someone who always needs to snack, you're probably not eating enough protein at your meals. And that's a sign that you should be eating more. Hair loss, hair thinning, brittle nails, these are all also signs that you're not getting enough protein. You need protein to not only maintain your muscle mass, but all of the tissue in your body. So this includes your hair, this includes your nails, this includes your joints, your bones, all of that. If your muscles get really sore after you work out and it takes a while for them to bounce back and not be sore anymore, that's another sign you're not eating enough protein. You're not giving your body the raw materials it needs to repair your muscles after you work out. If you find that your metabolism is really slow, if you are counting calories, which I don't recommend, but if you are counting calories and you're eating something like 1,200 and you're still gaining weight, you're not losing, this is a sign that you're not eating enough protein. Low energy throughout the day as well. While protein isn't a direct energy source, not eating enough can leave you feeling a little bit sluggish. So if any of these kind of rang true to you, that might mean that you need to take a look at how much protein you're eating and increase your intake. And the thing with protein is that it is so beneficial for supporting our metabolism because it takes more energy for our bodies to digest than carbohydrates or fat. When you eat protein, about 20 to 30% of the energy that's in that food, it takes your body to digest it, if that makes sense. I worded that kind of weirdly. But basically what I mean is if you eat 100 calories of protein, it takes about 20 to 30% of that to digest it. So the net calories that you're actually consuming is 70 to 80 calories. Whereas with carbs, it's 5 to 10%, and fat, it's like 0 to 3%. So it doesn't take much energy to digest carbs and fat. But for protein, it does take more energy, and this is actually a good thing. It just supports your metabolism, kind of keeps it firing. And if you don't eat enough protein, here are some of the side effects you might experience. Muscle breakdown, like I said, you're gonna have less muscle mass, which is really important as we age, especially after 40 and beyond. It's also going to increase your risk of insulin resistance. When we go through menopause or andropause, we actually become more insulin resistant naturally, and that's because there's changes in our hormones. But also losing muscle mass increases insulin resistance because, like I said, our muscle stores glucose. So if you have more muscle, you have more room to store glucose. You eat something high in carbs, it's broken down into sugar, it enters your bloodstream, and your body wants to shuttle that to your cells. So if you don't have a lot of muscle mass, there's not a lot of room to put that in. But if you do have more muscle mass, it can be spread out, which means less insulin's needed all at once. Your blood sugar is going to be more stable. All good things. You're going to be less likely to be insulin resistant, or it's going to improve it to a degree, because as we age, we become more insulin resistant naturally. So if we were insulin resistant before 40, it's only going to compound, which isn't ideal. Yes, it's going to happen to some degree, but there are things you can do to minimize it. And eating enough protein, maintaining your muscle, these are going to help. But beyond that, you also are at a higher risk of falls, fractures, you're going to be more frail, and later in life, one big fall can significantly reduce your longevity and how long you're going to live. And that's why it's so important to stay on top of this as we age and not wait until we've kind of reached that point where we're not able to be active anymore, where we're not able to stay moving. Once you have a fall later in life, it can be pretty dire. And there are ways to prevent that. And eating protein, it's so easy, but it just makes such a big difference. And that's really the point that I want to stress in this episode. Also, if you're not eating enough protein, it decreases your immune function, and it also means longer healing times. So if you do have that fall, it's going to take longer for you to bounce back. If you bounce back, now I'm not talking like, hopefully if you're just past 40, you're not at the point where one fall can kind of make or break things for you, but this is really a turning point when things start to decline more rapidly, and anything you can do to stay ahead of it, to keep yourself in better shape, is going to help you further down the line. It all adds up, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't need to be a marathon runner at 40 or anything like that. Just stay moving when you can, and eating enough protein, such a big difference. Another thing that happens if you're not eating enough protein is weight gain, because you're eating less protein, but you're probably eating more energy to feel full. So you're eating more carbohydrates and more fat, and anything that your body isn't using immediately for energy, it's going to be storing. If you're under eating protein, but you're still eating enough to kind of feel energized throughout the day, you're probably over consuming energy, and that's going to lead to weight gain. And once you start to become insulin resistant, and once it progresses after 40 and after menopause and andropause, then it becomes really difficult to lose weight because your insulin levels are higher at baseline. And when insulin levels are high, this is signaling your body to store fat and energy and not to burn it. Because if insulin's high, that means there's energy readily available in your body. That's what it would look like for someone who is metabolically healthy. So even if the energy is there, but you're insulin resistant, your cells aren't taking it in properly. So your body doesn't realize that it needs to tap into your stored body fat. You are more likely to be gaining weight instead of losing it. And you're more likely to gain weight around your midsection as visceral fat, which is a whole different issue. I mean, it is related to insulin resistance, but it is an inflammatory type of fat. It's not just stored energy. It actually causes inflammation in the body and increases disease risk and other things like that. But it all starts with higher insulin levels. I mentioned this earlier, but as women especially, we tend to undereat protein. We have this misconception that's kind of been drilled into all of us that protein is for bodybuilders. If we're eating too much, we're going to get bulky. We need to focus on having lean protein sources. A lot of women, and I think this is kind of shifting to a degree, but tend to gravitate towards chicken and white fish and avoid anything that's red meat or heavy, in our minds at least. Also, whenever we've been promoted like a low calorie weight loss plan, it's always low fat, so it's always just lean sources of protein. And that's actually not what we want, and that's especially not what we want if we have insulin resistance, which we're more likely to have after 40, because if you eat lean protein without fat, it actually can be converted into glucose because you're not giving your body an energy source with your meals. So the body is kind of used to running on carbohydrates. You're not getting any carbs with your meal, or you're not getting a lot of them. And then you're not getting any fat because you're focusing on lean protein. So the body's going to convert some of that protein into glucose. Now, this doesn't happen for people who are metabolically healthy. This is only really seen in those who are insulin resistant, but it's an easy fix. If you have your protein with enough fat, then your body uses that fat for energy instead and uses the protein where it's actually needed for maintaining muscle mass, maintaining tissue, that sort of thing. But just in general, we as women are under consuming protein, and this really catches up to us later in life. It really is even more important after 40 to be making sure that you're eating enough and eating even more than you might have when you were younger. And it's not about eating more volume in general, it's just about being smarter with your meals. At the end of the day, every meal should be focused around protein because it is the most important macronutrient that you're consuming. Fat and carbs, those are just energy. And yes, you need some fat to a degree for hormone function, that sort of thing. But carbs you can cut down quite a bit and not have any negative side effects. Protein you absolutely cannot skimp on. It really needs to be the center of every meal. At the start of this video, I mentioned having a goal of 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. But honestly, most women, most people in general are probably getting around 50 grams of protein a day. Nowhere near enough. So a good starting point if you are really new to this and you're finding it hard to get enough protein is to aim for 100 grams in a day. If you can get 100 grams, you're gonna feel a whole lot better. And then from there, you can try to increase it. And I do have other videos that talk about how to get 100 grams in a day and other videos that talk about hacks to add to your meal to increase your protein intake. So I'll link one of those up above or in the description box if you're listening on Spotify. But as a rule of thumb, protein the center of every single meal, and try to get at least 30 grams of protein. Now, when I say 30 grams of protein, I am not talking about the weight of the food. You're not just eating 30 grams or I don't know what that is, 2-3 ounces of meat. That's, or is it even less than that? Sorry, my conversions to ounces, I don't know ounces at all, but I'm not talking about the weight of the meat. When I say 30 grams of protein, I'm talking about the amount of protein that is in that. So a chicken breast or a steak that's about the size of your hand is gonna have 30 grams of protein. Any protein source from animal products, it's about the palm of your hand, not the palm of your hand, about your hand without your fingers, that's gonna be 30 grams of protein. So you want to be getting at least that amount in with every meal. So this can be beef, this can be chicken, this can be fish. If you're having eggs, you need to have about 5 eggs in order to get 30 grams of protein, which I know not everyone wants to eat 5 eggs at once. So that's where you can pair protein sources, have some chicken with your eggs, have some sausages without added filler or without added sugar. Even bacon is a good protein source. Just make sure, again, doesn't have added sugar. Eggs and smoked salmon, if we're talking breakfast. You can pair these protein sources, but you just want to make sure that you're getting 30 grams at every meal. And if you're doing that, then you're going to be close to that 100 grams, which is bare minimum. Some other ways to increase your protein at your meals: cottage cheese is a great protein source, Greek yogurt. You can use this in sauces, dips, that sort of thing. That's going to increase your protein content. If you're really struggling to get enough protein in, then protein powder can be a good option. Food should always be your first choice, but a high quality whey protein can be a good way to get a decent amount of protein in and help you to reach your goals and help you to maintain your muscle mass and keep your metabolism firing. It is hard to find one without fillers, so I'll link to a couple in the description box down below that I recommend, that I personally use, that are good brands, because like I said, there's a lot with added sugar, artificial sweeteners, which we want to avoid. Those can raise insulin. Just like weird ingredients in general that aren't necessary. The fewer ingredients, the better. And yeah, there's one brand called Equip that's based in the US. I do think they ship to most countries. They're really good. It's basically just like whey protein is the main ingredient, and maybe a bit of like stevia and maybe a bit of cacao powder, depending on the flavor you get, or they have a plain one. So that's a really good brand that I'll link to down below. Adding a collagen powder to your coffee or adding a whey protein powder to your coffee, that's a good way to get an extra dose in. Now, in general, I don't recommend snacking. I recommend focusing on 2 to 3 good quality meals every day. because when you're snacking all day long, even if it's low carb, high protein snacks, your insulin is going to be going up to some degree. And if you're eating and snacking all day long, that insulin doesn't have a chance to come back down to baseline. And that's when insulin sensitivity improves. That gives your body and your digestion a break. So if you can give yourself a few hours in between meals, that's going to help you just like across the board. And that's why I recommend focusing on quality meals and not really snacking in between. If you are eating enough protein, you're not going to be hungry in between your meals for snacks. So that's an added bonus. But if you do need to snack, something like a whey protein powder, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, tinned fish, that sort of thing. If you have some leftover chicken or beef, these are all great options for snacks. Even cheese, it's high in fat and in protein. That can be a good choice. These are all really good protein sources, and if you are gonna snack, these are gonna be your best option. But honestly, you don't need to overhaul your whole diet in order to get more protein in and to reap the benefits of having more protein. It's as simple as just making sure you have a protein source at every single meal and making sure you're getting at least 30 grams at every meal. Now, if you really have no idea where you're at in terms of how much protein you're eating, track for a few days and see. So you can use something like MyFitnessPal and just kind of weigh out your protein, weigh out your food, and see how much you're getting. It might be really eye-opening to see the numbers that way. I am not someone who recommends calorie counting long term, but it can be a good tool if you have no concept of what the macros are in different foods. It can be a good tool just to learn and understand what you're eating and what foods are high in protein and what foods aren't. Also, if you track something like plant proteins, you'll see just how little protein there are in things like black beans, lentils, legumes, that sort of thing, in comparison to carbs. These are recommended as plant protein sources, but they all have more carbs than protein. So in order to get a decent amount of protein, you have to eat a lot of them. You have to eat a lot of carbs and a lot of calories to get 30 grams of protein, which is shocking to a lot of people because they think something like chickpeas are a good source of protein and they're really not. So if you really want to understand this a bit more, just track for a couple of days. Don't do it long term, but just use it as a tool to kind of understand where you're at, and you can build off it from there. Like I said, it doesn't need to be a complete diet overhaul. Just make a few simple changes. Swap to mainly animal protein instead of plant protein. Focus your meals around protein, and you're already going to start feeling better, and you're going to notice the difference in your mood day to day. You're going to notice that you're maintaining more muscle. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel sharper. Your joints might not hurt as much. Because after 40, skimping on protein is really a non-negotiable. You can't be doing it. It is so important as we age, for longevity, for overall health. And if you want to keep feeling your best for as long as possible, you need to be eating enough protein. But anyways, I am going to wrap this up here. I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope this kind of shed some light on why protein is so important after 40 and beyond. And I hope you learned something about how to get more protein in. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below how much protein you try to eat in a day, and have you ever tracked it before? Is it hard for you to eat this much, or you find it pretty easy? Let me know in the comments down below, either on YouTube or on Spotify. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.